Peter McCormack's What Bitcoin Did podcast attracts over 1 million downloads a month. He's a voice of trust and authority in the often misunderstood world of Bitcoin. And since 2022, he's been on a mission to give that world its own football club, Real Bedford.
I might be able to convince one of these Bitcoin billionaires to come on the journey and throw a bit of money in.
Since taking over his hometown team, he's reinvented and reinvigorated them with bold branding and even bolder plans.
Can I do it? Can I get a Bedford team in the football leagues?
With both men and women looking good for promotion this year, all might seem rosy for Real Bedford. But living next door to their biggest rival means future plans have been put in jeopardy.
Look, when you go public, you're going to get people who support you and you're going to get people who are going to attack you. All this shithouse behaviour started happening in the background. They're really annoyed with your flags. I put these big flags with skull and crossbones on our clubhouse, which you can see from in their ground, just to wind them up.
So, can Peter give Bedford the team it deserves? And how does he run his football club? Welcome to another episode of How to Run a Football Club. Very happy to be joined by the one and only Mr. Peter McCormack here, obviously from Real Bedford. I want to talk about your experiences because you're fairly new in that. We're new in the game, but you're even newer in the game. 2022, I believe it was.
Yep.
Does anyone ever say 2022?
2022.
You got involved, but there's a lot's happened since then. But I want to start at the beginning.
Okay.
I want to start about, what I find so fascinating about this world of particularly non-league football. Traditionally, most people come at it from a non-football angle. They've had some business or whatever it is, they've been successful, and then they love football, so they go and get themselves a club. For us, it was a bit more, we were sort of in a little vertical of football in the content world of football, and I was and did FIFA stuff, and that's what allowed me to have a football club. But I'd say in some ways you're more traditional because you come at it from a different angle. But that angle is very non-traditional, which is obviously your experience in the Bitcoin world, your podcast, and the best Bitcoin podcast out there, millions and millions of listeners. And yeah, just tell me about how it all kicked off for you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for having me, Spence. So when I was a kid, I picked Liverpool as my team, right? That's who I supported. I was a Liverpool fan. And when I got to the age of starting going to football, and I first got my first car, I drove the 4 hours there and back to a Liverpool game. And I was like, yeah, but I was a bit like, God, I actually just wish I supported a local team. And who's our local team? And I didn't support Luton. I don't feel any kind of connection with them. It's a different town. I started to go to watch Reading because I was born in Reading, but again, didn't feel the connection. And so I just started to think, well, would it be great if Bedford had a team, like a good team in the Football League? I started to question why they hadn't had a team in the Football League and whether it could be something I could do. And the big team in Bedford's Bedford Town, historically. I think they've been up to step 2 once. Previous season, they were step 3, then I was step 4. So I was kind of trying to figure out, how can I do this? Like, why hasn't Bedford had a team in the Football League? We've got a population of 174,000. Burnley's 94,000. They're in the Premier League.
Even Blackburn Rovers won the Premier League, and they had a tiny population relatively, didn't they? So
that's my old man's team.
Is it?
Yeah, he used to live up there. But yeah, so why has it not happened? Who knows? Well, for whatever reason, I was like, well, can I do it? Can I get a Bedford team in the Football League? So back in 2021, just before Christmas, I approached Bedford Town, made them an offer to buy the club, backed by investors and sponsors, but they declined it. They were having a great season. They were going up to step 3. And so then somebody who I'd been helping me kind of work on this said, well, there's a team next door called Bedford FC.
Okay.
Why don't you buy them? They're step 6. It's a longer journey, but they've got, you can kind of mould it exactly what you want. So I approached the owner, Louis, and again, gave him pretty much the same presentation I gave to Bedford Town. Said, look, this is my plan. This is how I think I can get a team from Bedford into the Football League. And he was keen, so he sold me the club, and here we are 2.5-ish years
So he's
later.
not involved anymore?
Oh, yeah, no, he's still involved,
okay.
I mean, he comes to every game, home and away. I think like most people, when you make an announcement and you're out there saying, well, we're going to get this team in the Premier League, and people are like, who's this idiot?
Well, we've done it too.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, who's this idiot? Shut up. But he's now started to appreciate actually the plan's working.
Yeah.
We've had a good first couple of years, and fingers crossed we will keep going.
Yeah, so you came in, obviously not a new club because you've taken over an existing club, but like us, Step 6 is where we started as well in our non-league journey. I think what's probably a little bit different between us is I do want to dig a bit deeper into that sort of Bitcoin association, because I think it's a huge part of your club, obviously, and identity and everything. I think your numbers and your plan probably make a bit more sense than ours. Like ours is really based off of like just this groundswell of support we have on YouTube, and we're kind of sort of saying, could we get to the Premier League? Whereas you're sort of going, no, I want to go to the Premier League. And I've had to sort of personally, from a hashtag perspective, bring that vision back in a little bit more into the real world, because the reality is we've run out of money way before then, right? And it's super expensive. It gets harder every year. But so tell me about like.
Can I tell you something on that?
Yes, please.
So the thing about them saying, yeah, I'm going to get them in the Premier League. Obviously, everyone says I'm an idiot. What are you on about? But the truth is, like, the short-term goal, short to medium, is the Football League.
Yeah.
But once you get to the Football League, you're not going to go, okay, I'm done now.
No.
See you later. We've seen Wrexham. They're probably going to go up again, up to League One. They're going to be looking to go to the Championship.
But then for Wrexham, you've also got Salford, who did the same thing, started off in the levels we're talking about, and then have hit a plateau.
No, I totally get that. But you might as well set your target as high as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that, and then that kind of breeds into how you run your club.
Yeah.
You try and run it the most professional way. But
well, that's, I think, one of the things that we definitely would have experienced. And we obviously talked a lot over the years, you and I, about sharing a lot of frustrations and things that we deal with. But I think it probably has worked against us a little bit in terms of winning people over when it's so apparent that we're kind of on the way up, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Like, it's no disrespect to any of these leagues, no disrespect to any of the clubs. And a lot of non-league clubs, they have these trajectories. They go up for 3-4 years and they come down, and it's very sort of up and down. What's amazing about the majority of them is they just survive for 100+ years. And I'm super envious and a lot of respect of that, because proof will be in the pudding as to whether we can do it, right? Again, I don't know how long Bedford FC were around before that, but obviously hashtag we're a brand new club. But I think sometimes it does piss people off when they see you, particularly when it's working. You're going up, and they kind of see you as, like we've had teams where we've had meetings with them, whether it's about a ground share or even trying to get in on an opportunity to own a ground and all these things. And when we meet with them, they'll be 2 divisions above us. And like by the time, you next converse with them, you're a division above them. And they're kind of like, oh, wow, we really missed the boat on not working with you. And I'm like, well, we were telling you at the time that's what the plan was. But I want to take it back first before we dig deeper into your new club. It's like, how does someone get themselves in a position where you can take over a Step 6 team and say, my plan is to take you to the Premier League? Like what? Tell me about the podcast. Tell me about the huge support you guys have and been able to build that made you think that dream is achievable.
Yes, good question. And let's say Football League, because realistically,
okay, Football League.
If
still an amazing achievement.
Yeah, if we could ever, look, National South would be amazing.
Yeah,
every promotion is amazing. But I think Bedford can sustain a team in the Football League. When you look at the other teams in kind of League 2, League 1 and the size of the towns, I think it's sustainable. So let's say that's the goal. So when I first wanted to buy the club, like any business, you're a businessman, you just look at the numbers and how does a club make money? It's really at that level, it's how many people come through the door, buy a ticket, buy a burger and a beer. And then how many people will maybe buy a shirt, and then what sponsors you can get locally. Yeah. And it has a limitation. Shirt sponsors, you might only get £1,000. You might get 500 quid. You might get a couple of grand. You might put 20 boards around the ground for 250 each. You might have 200, 300, 400 people coming in. So unless you're pumping money in yourself, there's a limitation to how much revenue you can bring in. And I don't know what you think of this kind of algorithm, but I think about 60, 70% of your promotion is your budget for your team. Yeah. About 20, 30% is the manager, and then 10% luck. And so I created what I said I want to do is every season have a budget that gets us to be able to compete for minimum of playoffs. Yeah. Hopefully win a league. So then I was looking at it, I was going, well, look, how do you make more money? Well, I have this podcast. It's a Bitcoin podcast. It's one of the biggest in the world. I felt like if I made us this Bitcoin team, suddenly all the people who listen to my podcast might support us. And then all the companies, which I already have connections with, the sponsors, might support us. And so, yes.
But crucially, there wasn't a Bitcoin associated football team. It was a unique idea.
There are 4 now.
Okay, so that's happened since.
Yeah. So
any in England, the others or not?
No, there's Austria. I think there's one that's starting in Hawaii.
So do you
Bulgaria.
think they've been inspired by yourself?
Yeah. No, they've all called me first and said, "How have you done it?" And the thing was, once I realised actually this was an idea that could work, I was like, well, we've got to be the first.
Yeah.
Because there's the Bitcoin team and then there's Bitcoin team. So we've got to be the first. Luckily, having the podcast and the platform has benefited me in doing that. And
what was the point where you went, okay, I've established this podcast, super associated as a man with Bitcoin and big cryptocurrency, but I actually love football. I want a football club. What was that moment where you just went, it was just you looking at Bedford as an opportunity, or had you always dreamed of having a club one day?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you ask my dad, I said to him when I was probably, 15, I'm going to buy a football club one day and get them in the Premier League like a kid. But the first time I looked at it, Bedford Town, I think it was something like 2017, their owner then, I think his name's David Howells, was letting go. And so me and my friend Tom took a look at it. We just didn't have the money, didn't have a plan, so we forgot about it. And it was only then back in 2021 when I was like, hold on, if I make him the Bitcoin team and this works, I was like, I've got to do this quick.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably within a week or 2 weeks I realised. So I approached the owner of Bedford Town. But if you listen to my podcast, since it's launched, I've constantly said, I'm going to buy my local team. Yeah. I'm going to buy my local team. And
those people who come along for the ride then, they've they know it's, I think that was a big thing for me as well. People that watched my videos for years knew that how much I loved the idea of running a football team. I literally made Football Manager content, and it was doing that in real life that appealed to me. And it's about people buying into the story. And I think one of the things we've started to learn in this podcast as well is about how much successful clubs need their own identity, and I think that is what you have done so well. One thing that you guys have that we definitely don't have is, as well as having this super modern, non-traditional, brand new idea, you've also been able to combine it with a place in the world, which we haven't been able to do. And I think sometimes that comes with its struggles, and I want to get into later. I know he's had some issues with the ground and stuff recently, but ultimately that I think is a massive obvious strong suit you have, because it's the thing that gets thrown in our face constantly. Where are you from? Even your name being quite unique. I wouldn't say it's untraditional, because it's actually a link to my understanding. Obviously, Real Bedford, not Real Bedford. Real Bedford is a link to like the Real Madrids of the world, right? Yeah. Let's talk about that, because that was quite a bold move, wasn't it? Because I mean, the reason you have to explain it's Real and not Real, I would think the first thing I would think if I was an onlooker, an objective, or even your rival's Bedford Town fan, I would think they've come along and they call themselves Real Bedford. Is that because you weren't able to buy them, etc.? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think they thought that. I think they were pissed off about that. So what actually happened with the name, I was actually out in America when I came up with the name. I was at Inter Miami. Okay. I knew the sponsors of the team. They invited me to go and watch them play. And I was like, Inter Miami, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I was like, what about Inter Bedford? I was like, nah, that sounds a bit weird. I was like, no, let's go Real Bedford. So we needed an identity. And people confuse Bedford Town and Bedford FC. Yeah. I was like, they're not going to confuse Bedford Town and Real Bedford. So I was like, we'll do that. And you won't forget it.
No, I mean, it's brilliant. It's funny because obviously
it's like a five-a-side team.
In Spain, Real means royal, right? Yeah. So it's like Latin's whole link in Barcelona and Real Madrid is the sort of, the state team. If you're not the state, the royal team. The royal, it was linked back in the olden days of the kind of almost dictatorship in Franco and all this stuff. Whereas Barcelona is the much more liberal, Catalonia, and the people in Spain, it's almost a political, like, are you Democrat or Republican sort of thing as to who you support. But you've just it's almost like, again, same thing for hashtag. Yeah. It's almost like a seven-a-side name. Hashtag United literally was a seven-a-side name because we worked in social media. And then we were like, actually, kind of does what it says in the team because we've made a football team out of the same group of people. But it does end up being identity. And then where does the skull and crossbones,
let me tell you a funny story, though. So when I came up with the name, I was like, great, this is amazing. Yeah, we'll be Real Bedford. People won't forget it. And obviously, Real is in Madrid, and then Bedford, they're like opposite towns.
You need to twin, don't you? Twin with Madrid.
I mean, it's almost a joke. Yeah. If people know Bedford, like, it's a deprived town. It doesn't really have much going for it. It's not like Madrid. But anyway, so we did it. So I came up with a logo. I ordered all the merch. Literally paid for the merch. And then we went to register the team with the FA, and they said, oh, there's already a Real Bedford. We're like, what? Yeah, there was a Sunday League Div 5 team called Real Bedford. Man. And you know what it's like? You can't have two teams in the system that are the same. And so I was like, I had to approach them. And I was like, so would you sell us your name? And the guy wouldn't reply. And then eventually I got hold of him because I'd already spent tens of thousands on merch. And so eventually got hold of him and bought the name off, and it was great for them. They got it, I think it was like $1,000, and they got all new kits out of it. Okay. But there could have been, if they just said no, I would have been stuck with all this merch. We couldn't have been Real Bedford. Yeah. And again, no, the logo is probably, somebody who's been to America a lot. I went to watch the Raiders. If you ever I went to see them when they before they went to Vegas, when they were in Oakland. Yeah. And took my kids, and you got there and they were playing like Metallica. Everyone had these face masks with skulls on it, and I listen to heavy metal, and so I was like, oh, this is cool. This is the kind of experience I want. and there's no football club in the UK with a skull and crossbones. And, you know, I was like, well, let's do it. And obviously we sell loads of merch. The kids love it. It's a bit rebel. It kind of suits who I am.
Yeah.
And again, people don't forget it. So
yeah, it's unique. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just be much of a muchness, one of the pack, that there's so many football teams out there.
listen, we're trying to punch above our weight. And, you know, a football club, whether you like it or not, is a business and it's a brand. And a successful football club is a successful business, and successful merchandising is a successful brand. People hate to hear that word. They don't want to hear brand and marketing because they just want to think about football.
Yeah.
But successful clubs are good at it.
Yeah,
and you know, we realize we just got to have a strong brand. We've got a lot of people who follow us in America, so we sell a lot of merch to them. And yes, it's worked out really well for us.
And how has that been? What was the reaction like when you tried to buy Bedford Town, you went to a different club slightly lower down the pyramid? Probably on football terms, they weren't particularly threatened immediately, but they probably knew the potential of what you were going to do because they'd had the pitch themselves. I'm guessing it created a bit of a rivalry. It would have probably already been somewhat of a rivalry between the two clubs, but that exacerbated it, did it?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad to begin with. We're more laughed at. Like,
right.
Yeah, everyone's like just laughing at me, just tweeting at me, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, what do you know about football, blah, blah, blah. Just dismissed us. I thought we were stupid. And then we won the league in our first year. They got relegated.
And so I love that.
So it was from us step 6 to them step 3 to us step 5, them to step 4, one apart.
Yeah.
And I would say over this season, as we've been top of the league, they're top of their league, but the tensions have increased.
Have you played them in a competitive fixture yet?
No, we've offered them friendlies, both pre-seasons, and one they did once agree, and then they said they couldn't do it, and they messed us around another time. And because it's got so tense now, it's not just a rivalry. There is definite hostility.
Yeah.
There won't be a friendly. There's no point having a friendly. It wouldn't be.
It'd be weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be horrible. We wanted to get them in the county cup. We were on the different sides of the draw, so that couldn't happen. We'll meet at some point.
It will happen eventually, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But what struck us, obviously, I've been down to your ground.
Yeah.
Our women played each other last year in the FA Cup.
Yep.
And what struck me immediately as you enter the car park, or the car parks, I should say, is the two grounds are literally next to each other. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples. I know there's some other ground shares in the past that have almost had, like, you know, obviously famously in things like Italy, you got Lazio, Roma, and whatnot. But these are two independent grounds, but are literally, like, you could probably do a throw-in from one pitch to the other pitch.
Easily.
It's so close. Like, how is that? I mean, I'm assuming you try to avoid it, but I'm guessing sometimes you probably got home games at the same time as well, maybe?
Yeah, so we asked the leagues to try and separate them. So it's usually 2 or 3 times a season.
Right.
And originally, like, we reached out to them and said, look, games on the same day. Let's kind of work on the parking. When you're playing at home and we're not, you can use our parking. We've tried.
Yeah.
You know, we originally tried to try and build a relationship, but there was, can I swear?
Of course you can, yeah.
Because there was like all this shithouse behaviour started happening in the background. I've kind of got to the point like, you know what, forget it.
Yeah.
Let's forget it. We've tried.
So interesting that I find with non-league is because the clubs are generally very small and small teams that operate them. It does mostly just come down to the demeanour of the person in charge and like what sort of person they are.
Yeah.
And the fact that if you had a normal football non-league club owner's mentality, when you didn't get to buy them and you bought the other team, you'd probably be really like, well, fuck you guys, I'm going to show you how to do it. But you weren't. You were still willing to work with them and do all these things because you're a businessman. You understand it's going to be better to work together and even play on the rivalry, but in a clever way, than it is going to be to just have hostility towards people that doesn't help you in your life. But
I don't know. I was still like internally, I was still like, yeah, fuck you, I'm going to show you.
Yeah, no, motivation-wise on the
Yeah.
pitch, I have the same. There's loads of teams around here I want to beat, but I still see the bigger picture and I think what's going to every decision I make ultimately comes back to what's going to help my football club. And sometimes, well, generally, you want to have good relationships with people, even if you don't like their team.
Yeah.
You're dealing with an individual ultimately, and there's no reason to have hostility for the sake of it. It happens too much. I mean, we had a terrible experience recently at a game. I'm not going to name the club, but we literally walked in the committee room before the game. And they just didn't look up from there. They were all sitting down on the table. Not one of them looked up. I went around to shake their hands, and they didn't even put their hand out. And like one of them had to grab his hand and put it in mine. And I was like, "What are you doing here? Like, what?"
Yeah.
It's like they made us feel bad that we'd come to their ground for a game. Like it's what it is, mate. It's how it works. Football.
I mean, you've been to us. You've seen. We're nice. We
Of
look
course,
after
yeah.
everyone who comes in. We put on good food. We look after the committee. We try and treat everyone nicely. But at the same time, there are people out there who just unnecessarily hostile.
Yeah.
They'll lie about you. They'll spread rumors.
Yeah,
They all kinds of shithousery. And so the people who are good to us, I'm always fair and nice and happy to spend time with them. But I will tell people publicly to do one if they're attacking our club. Because,
well, I think that brings you to our next point, because I saw obviously you tweeted recently an issue you're having with the ground, right? So you're a tenant there of the council, I believe.
Yeah, so we get 3 years left on the lease when we signed. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's being worked on. And,
okay, good.
You know, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but it's being
enough.
worked on. But a very short notice that we had a new mayor came in, and we'd agreed heads of terms, spent a year negotiating. We're ready to re-sign the lease. We'd explained all our plans, that this ground can take us up to step 2, but we need a ground beyond that. Let's start on that now, because that's 4 to 5 years of work. We don't need any money off you. We can fully fund this ourselves. So we gave them all our plans, and then it just, no notice. The new mayor came in and said, don't sign the lease. We did get a meeting with him, and it was a funny one because he was like, well, I know you two teams don't get on, and they're really annoyed with your flags. I put these big flags with skull and crossbones on our clubhouse, which you could see from their ground, just to wind them up. And so he said, like, we'll put you in different places. But unfortunately, I think what it was, the council and the mayor don't understand the ground grading system, what happens at the end of March, all those kind of things.
The place they were going to potentially put you to wouldn't have been up to spec.
Yeah. And so we just went back to him and said, look, this isn't going to work. We're happy to move, but find us an appropriate place and give us a lease extension till that's ready. And the FA's got involved. They put out a statement about it. Beds FA, a guy called Alan Young, brilliant bloke, loves football, loves local football. He's now working with them, and fingers crossed that'll get resolved.
Because that's what you want from an FA standpoint.
Yeah.
You want an objective opinion that says what is best for football in this county, in this area, and that's clearly to have 2 good teams. Why to have one? But I'm not saying I don't know the council. Obviously, I don't know the full details, but it seems to me, in my experience with councils and with other teams and things, and again, because we're not directly linked to a place, even though we are as people and as an office and all these things, we're not looked at by councils like that. We're always inferior. We're always viewed as inferior to the town, the club that's got a town. The town that's got a club and had a club for a long time. And that probably won't change for you until you're way beyond them in the pyramid, because it'll always be they've been around longer, or they've got all the links in the community. And I think that. But obviously, you felt the need to go public with it, and I think good luck to you, because there's a load of times sometimes we've had to do the same. Sometimes I've felt like I really want to talk about what's happening to us here, and you have to make a choice whether you do it or not.
Look, when you go public, you're going to get people who support you, and you're going to get people who are going to attack you. But at least it's in public, it's transparent, and the decisions are transparent. And I'm a Bedford boy. I love Bedford, and I want Bedford to be a successful town. I want to have a successful football team, and I think it's like objectively unquestionable that we are good for the town for a couple of reasons. What we've done in terms of building this brand internationally is we bring people to Bedford. You know how you get like big away crowds? Yeah. Well, we get, every time someone comes on holiday to the UK who listens to my podcast, they email and they come to the ground and watch a game. So you've got people from America, Australia, across Europe coming. We've probably had over 1,000 people visit from outside of the country. We had 12 Slovakians come once.
Wow.
Yeah. But what happens is they stay in the hotels in Bedford, they eat in the restaurants, they're spending money. So that to me is like unquestionably good for Bedford. There's no reason to visit Bedford. It is a shit town in England, right? It's not Manchester, it's not Cambridge, it's not London. And so we're bringing people into the town. But like you, I love women's football. We've invested a huge amount of money into women's football. We've taken a team that only didn't get relegated because another team folded to now top of the league, having won every game.
Won every game, amazing.
And we're investing in women and girls football. We're investing in youth football. So we're unquestionably good for the town.
Have Bedford Town got a women's set up?
No, so we partnered with Bedford ladies and girls who became Real Bedford ladies this season. I think they tried to partner with them. That didn't work. They do have a youth set up. And I'm not saying they don't do anything in the community. It's not us or them. It's just measure us on our own, judge us on our own.
No, of course, it's just an objective way of looking at it. Is you can't just look at a team and see what level they're at, because there's a million different reasons for those things. But the fact that you're leading the way in the area for the women's setup is a huge string to your bow. And the women's game is growing exponentially. So I think more and more teams are going to get into it. The ones that aren't into it now are just going to be lagging behind. And in 5 years, they're going to be starting not only at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the 7th tier, they're going to have some really, getting up is going to be way harder than it has been in previous years.
Well, I mean, it's even hard. You know what it's like. Finishing second is finishing 10th.
Yeah.
It's the same. There's one place, and, you can't afford many mistakes to get promoted. And so it takes a lot of hard work, takes a lot of investment. But there is room for 2 teams in the town. If there was one, great, but there's room. But judge us on our own. Don't pick between the teams And if you're going to pick between the teams, well, look who's investing. Look who's investing in women's and youth sports like we are. So I just found it a bit weird, and it's kind of opened my eyes to how the council and the borough work, and it's just left a bad taste because it was all unnecessary. I don't want to just call clubs out, and I don't just want to fan the flames, but at Bedford Town, I would just say to them, beat us on the pitch.
Yeah.
Don't do all this shady shit in the background and try and damage our club. Stop looking over your shoulder. You're going into step 3. They're going to win that league, right? Yeah. Beat us on the pitch.
What's their situation in terms of the back room? Have they got more traditional, just some people putting money into it?
Yeah, so John Taylor, we've clashed recently. We probably don't like each other anymore, but we used to have a good relationship. What I will say in his defence is, he loves that club, and he's worked very hard to make that club a success. And, he has had successes. He did get up to step 3, and they're winning the league this year. I think they've got a couple of guys, I think it's a guy called Ben Banks and Gary Hewitt on their board. They're doing their thing, but we're trying to beat them on the pitch, and as a business, I think they're trying to beat us by being shithouses, putting obstacles in our way.
Maybe that's because they can't beat you ultimately with the revenue. This is what we experience, You have such a unique and unmatchable revenue model with your whole separate side to the club that they have to do that. Their only option is to try and stop you getting the things you need. Like for us, we don't even have a ground, right? So you're already ahead of us on that, and we don't get that food and bar money. So yes, we've got this model, the YouTube money and the sponsors we get, is great, but we've now reached a level where, regardless of how other teams' models exist, mostly it's just rich guys putting money into clubs, they can match us financially. The bit that they won't want us to get is the food and bar. Once we get our own ground, then they'll be like, oh, so you've got everything we've got, and you've got this other thing. And that's probably how Bedford Town look at you, which is, it's only a matter of time.
Could you imagine waking up one day and, I don't know, speaking to your brother and say, that rival team, right, we can't beat them on the pitch. Let's throw a few hand grenades into their operations and try and fuck it up for them. Can you imagine
I can't imagine doing that because it's not how I operate. I don't look sideways. I just want to work, that's why I don't really see us as having local rivals, and sometimes teams locally get annoyed with me for saying that, or they think I think we're above them. It's nothing to do with that. It's like we aren't doing the same thing. Like, God, I love the rivalries, local town teams we want to play and beat. We want that motivation, but first of all, we've never been in one league more than 2 years because we've gone up so much, so we haven't had enough time to create genuine on-pitch rivalries. Mm-hmm. That will come in time for sure. But equally, like, if I get bogged down, and I probably comes across as arrogant, but I really don't mean it that way. I think anyone in my position, and you'll definitely relate to this, would understand what I mean. If I get bogged down with what X, Y, Z team are doing around to the side of us that don't have anything like the same business model we have, I'm just going to end up being like them. I'm not trying to be like them. That doesn't mean they're not good and great, and they're great football teams to the community, but nothing that we have had from day one, none of the stuff we've achieved has been from me looking at non-league team going, how do I be like them? It's literally come from me doing the opposite and going, how do I make something completely different to that? So why would I look at those teams? I want to beat them at football, sure, but they're not rivals. Rivals, it's this. I remember back in the day when the Premier League came out and said they saw one of their biggest rivals and threats was Fortnite, and everyone was confused. And they were like, no, because it's taking kids' attention away from football, and that's going to stop it. And that's the sort of mentality I look at. Okay, what's the actual threats to us? It's losing sponsors. It's not getting people watching YouTube videos. So like Logan Paul is as much a competitor to #United as Billericay Town are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's smashing us right now. If it was football, we'd beat us about 15-0. But you know what I mean? That's the mentality. But it all comes from a place like yours does of how do you win football matches.
Yeah, how do you win
football
matches?
We just think a little bit outside the box as to how that goes about it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, look, it's funny. When we announced the team, it's my son, he said to me, he said, do you watch Spencer FC? And I was like, no. My son is like, he loves you. I think I'm a generation too old to have known it. And so he's like, you need to check them out. You need to check out #. And so obviously I checked you out. I always feel like you're maybe a couple of years ahead of us. And I love that you do this pod now. As soon as you launched it, I text you. I was like, because this is helpful, because I think what you should do as clubs, you look at other clubs, see what they do, and learn from them.
Exactly.
I wish I'd have launched this, and I wish we had the viewership that you have on YouTube. So I love everything you've done, and I see the challenges. You like us are a team that people want to attack because you're different, but it's working. And what I say to those people, what they completely and absolutely miss with clubs like yours or ours, is that just think wider. You might dislike the model. You might think it's not traditional, but everything you're doing and we're doing is leading to more people playing football.
Yeah, exactly.
And more kids playing football. So that's a good thing.
And non-league, non-league's great. I mean, I think I sent you the stat the other day. You mentioned it a minute ago. So we get these stats, they send them around the league about attendances and things. Now, our home attendance, when the first few seasons of non-league was one of the best in the league because we were at lower levels. Now we're at a point where our home attendances are bottom half of the table in terms of numbers. But what's a crazy stat is that we have by far the highest away average attendance. Now, that seems weird because we'll go to a game. We played, I think, Hastings the other day, a couple of thousand people there. And I saw the tweets and the reply, and someone said, I don't get it. Like, why was there so many people at Hastings today? Hastings often get well over 1,000 anyway, but it was their highest of the season so far, I think. And why is there so many? It's not like Hash have a massive away following. And it's true, we've not got loads of people coming from Essex to Hastings, but we have a lot of people who watch our videos in Hastings that don't normally go to Hastings, but will come to watch Hashtag. Now, they might even be supporting Hastings because they're local to Hastings, but they don't ever go to Hastings unless we go. So what that means is, and the stat is literally there for everyone to see, it's something like, I'll put it on the screen now, our highest average attendance is something like just under 1,200.
Wow.
And the next second is 700 or 800. So we're like 50% better than the next best team. We don't get any money from that because it all goes to the home team. You know, half the time, like I say, they're not even supporting us. They're coming to see the circus when it's in town. But how is that not good for non-league football? Even at the level we're at now, step 3, we are putting money in the pockets of those teams. If we were not coming to that game, it's a different team from our league, they would have made thousands and thousands of less pounds on the door and in the bar that day. And I think people are starting to get it. I think now some teams are starting to, maybe not like love us, you can't expect other teams to love you, but just to accept us, give us a seat at the table. We still do have a few that just are full of hate, and it always comes from the top in my experience. It's not about like the area, it's not about the, you know, the nature of the football club. There's no such thing really in non-league. It's the identity is created by whoever the custodian of that club is and how they ask people to operate. And
but there's an issue when they don't know you. So I'd say we actually get on with pretty much every team in our league, mainly. It's teams outside of that, maybe league above or next county that don't really know us and know what we're about. Look, our crowds are nothing like yours, but there's a similar situation. When we took over, the average crowd was about 40 at home, and that was just kind of friends and family. And then our first full season, we got that up to 180, and our biggest was 330. This year, we're averaging
and that's
about...
step 6 as well, right?
Step 6,
that's incredible, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the best average in the league, and then we've done the same again this year. It's like averaging near 250. We've had a 471. But when we go to away games, I always have a look at what the attendance was and compare it to their previous ones, and they're bigger crowds. One, because we're top of the league. 2, we're kind of the talked about team, and I'm a bit of a loudmouth. They're like, they want to come and check it out. But the chairman, when you ever chat to the other chairman, they're like, this is great. We're going to do double the money we normally do today. And we know how important that money is to these clubs. So, I think other clubs doing new and interesting things is only good for football.
100%.
It's only, look how many clubs have gone bust over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And you've got these new models, new ideas, and that are leading to more people playing football and local clubs and non-league clubs making more money. And we also kind of have to thank Wrexham a bit, really, because there is now this awareness of non-league football in the US.
Yeah.
Which has been brilliant. And I mean, you've probably got fans all over the world as well. That's a really good thing. And I've grown to love non-league and start to care less about the Premier League.
Yeah.
That kind of that transition's happened. So I appreciate everything you guys have done, and I'm definitely nicking ideas off you.
No, it's all good. I look at people like yourselves, and you've got friends of ours like Harry Hugo at Farnham Town, or teams that even the SC Dons guys who we've only really made friends with recently, but we had in on the show. Like, I see us all really as in the same kind of industry, if you like, or whatever genre. Like, we're all trying to do things different, and we're coming at it from a new twist. So I think we have to kind of stick together a little bit.
Yeah.
How important is that international audience for you? Like, because I know you've got a lot of people listening to your podcast over in the States and other countries. Like, that's one of the things that's really unique about your club is, like I say, you have got the local bit. You are called, you have a place in your name. You are getting people coming from Bedford. You clearly demonstrate how you're bringing money into the economy. But you've also got people miles and miles away from Bedford that care about your football team. That gives you a real unique twist, doesn't it?
Well, it's just good for the business model. So we made a decision from day one. We want to stream every game we can. And that's expensive. It's 60 grand a year. And that 60 grand would be more than most teams at our level spend on their wage bill.
Yeah.
But what we knew we wanted to do was have the ability to anyone around the world who wanted to watch a game, they can. So they see every home game and then every away game that the away team allows us, which I think is about half this season. That gives them the connection to the team. But the important thing about the international reach and the international side of the brand is that we are entirely focused on Bedford when I'm there. We want to grow that. That's about our local sustainability. We'll get into that. But our sponsors, we probably get the same sponsorship revenue of maybe like a National League team.
Yeah.
That allows us to invest in the infrastructure, allows us to invest in the team, do what we've done with the ladies. But we also sell a lot of merch. If I go to a conference, I'll take a couple of suitcases of merch. It'll all sell 4 or 5 grand. You know, you do 5 conferences a year, that's 25 grand. On top of the fact, the vast majority of merch we sell goes to America. I mean, this is mad. In our first season in Step 6, we sold 2,000 shirts.
Wow.
All that money goes into the club. Well, I say that. My problem is you know what it's like with kit. I actually ordered 3,000 at the start, and so I had 1,000 unsold. So we kind of broke even on shirts.
Yeah.
But all that stuff just gives us this business model, this competitive business model where we can bat out of our league. And a lot of people talk about the money. They're always like, "Oh, you money bags, spending money on your football club." It's like, yeah, we want to win leagues. We want to get in the football league. This is a business.
No, exactly. You've come in at that level because that was the opportunity that presented itself to you. If you had come in at a higher level, you would have. And it's just about making it make sense. I mean, you're very transparent with your numbers, and on your website, you talk about your revenues, over 500,000, all these sorts of things. What's the plan for when you get, and I'm sure you will, like we're talking, both teams in the 5th tier right now, right? Women in the 5th tier, which is the actual 5th tier. Sorry, Step 5, I should say, for the men's game, which is actually the 9th tier. But double promotion looking very likely. Women have won every single game, as you mentioned. You're in the same league as some people we know very well, like our landlords, Bowers and Pitsy.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of travelling, actually, for that tier you're in,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And then, obviously, the men looking very good to go up as well. So just like we experienced last year, double promotion, whole club going in the right direction. I don't know how anyone could have any criticisms about how you're doing it, especially, like I say, with the transparency. What is the plan when you inevitably get to, we're talking 3rd tier in the women's, like we are now, just outside the championship, which is we can get into a completely different kettle of fish in terms of this license you've got to apply for and the regulations they put on you to even be in that league. You can get denied promotion if you don't reach them. And in the men's game, once you get into the National League, you're talking travelling, you're talking hotels, you're talking professional clubs in that league. What do you need to do to then make that next step into the EFL in terms of revenue? In terms of, for me, it's like, we know what we have to do. We have to get that next part of our business model, the bit you have, the making money from when we do get good gate receipts, good numbers through the door. Like, what's going to stop you from making that jump, if anything?
Yeah, look, if anything, that we might get to certain levels where we get stuck for a while. I'm fully expecting that. The way I tend to, like, my manager always says he works one game at a time. Don't ask me about next Tuesday's game, or I'm thinking about Saturday. I'm kind of the same with leagues. I think about one league at a time, one division at a time. So when we started this season, I said to my manager, what do you need to compete for the league? So he explained everything you needed, resources, money, everything. So that was provided. And then the majority of my job's done there. There's day-to-day work. But I immediately started work on Step 4. And that's not to say we guarantee promotion. We could screw it up this year. We could end up in the playoffs and not make it. But I work based on the idea that if we do get there, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So everything's ready now for Step 4. The sponsorship's in place, the budget's in place. We haven't spent all our budget this year, so we're ready for Step 4.
Ground grading all good?
Ground grading's all good. Everything's ready. And so what will happen is once the next season starts, I'll be working on Step 3. Now, I'm already kind of working on it because you've got to think years ahead for the ground. Step 3 worries me a bit more.
Because the cost just exponentially...
Look, if you want to go in and win league straight away, one, it's hard. It's very, very hard. Even with the best budget, you're not necessarily going to do it. But there's teams spending 10, 12 grand a week on
tell me about
the wage bill. So I've done a budget for Step 4, Step 3, and Step 2. When I look at Step 3, there's currently a hole in terms of the budget I want, and that hole at the moment is about 150, 200 grand. Now, I've got a year and a half to figure that out. Is that some new sponsorship we do? Can we launch an academy? What are the range of options to me to make that happen? When I look at Step 2 and Step 1, the holes are huge. We're talking hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Now, can we grow our crowds?
Yeah.
I'd love a crowd like Bury or Notts County.
Yeah.
But can we get Bedford to the stage where 1,500 to 1,000 people are coming? Because that makes a huge difference. So, me and we've got Will here, my media guy. Like we're sitting down this week and working on our media plan. There's little things we're doing. Like, for example, I've just taken a lease on for a cafe in the town.
Yeah.
And it's going to be kind of a cafe bar which is going to be a Rail Bedford bar. And
This is not at the ground.
No, right in the
Okay.
town centre.
Nice.
Because that, for me, is a permanent advert for the football club in the town.
Nice, I like it.
Someone comes in and buys a cup of coffee, it's a black cup with a logo on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can sit there permanently in the town and tell people about what we're doing.
So
we're
you've got
always-
to find someone to run a cafe. Like, is that something?
Well, I already run a bar, so I've already got bars.
Okay.
So the logistics are very similar. And we're going to put an office in the back, a bit like this, where all our merch will be, so we can kind of centralise things around that.
Yeah.
But that's part of growing the crowd. But yeah, we might get stuck at some point. I might be able to convince one of these Bitcoin billionaires to come on the journey and throw a bit of money in. I don't know. But right now I'm focused on supporting the manager for the rest of this season, having everything ready for next season, which is pretty much there, and thinking about step 3. I can't even think about National League.
No.
Also, one of the reasons you can't think about it is you don't know how quick your crowds are going to grow. If your crowd grows by 50% or 100%, that changes things entirely.
Of course.
And so, I have ideas and I have rough budgets, like I say, all the way. I've done a budget all the way through to step 1. And there are big holes. But, if we're really successful at growing our crowd over the next year or do a new type of sponsorship, then perhaps those gaps close a little bit. And so I will keep adjusting those each year. But right now it's just like one season at a time, one division at a time.
But within that, though, what time scales are you giving yourself to do that? Like when we came into non-league, I sort of said, right, 5 years, I want to get to step 3. That was based on really, I felt that it was an achievable goal.
Yeah.
It was 3 promotions in 5 years. Technically, we did it in 4 because we had these COVID years. It was 5 seasons, but 2 of them were combined. And that didn't include the women's promotion. So technically, we got 4 promotions in 4 years, really. But that was based on just pure numbers. It was based on building in a couple of years where we didn't succeed. It was based on what I knew that we could get if we sustain viewership and continue to get sponsors, but also allowing for a little bit of a drop-off in case anything went wrong. I certainly didn't plan for COVID, but we managed to navigate that all right. I certainly didn't plan for, our old kit deal just not paying us any money from all the shirts they sold, but we managed to make it work. But I don't know what would have happened if, and this isn't going to happen to you or us, I don't think, but I wouldn't know if 3 years in, we'd still been in that same first league. I don't know what that would have done to the plan, because it would have inevitably, our trajectory is so linked to our sort of narrative and the content that we make and the story that we can get people invested in to watch. If we hadn't gone up in 3 years, people probably would have lost interest. I think they would have been like, what's hashtag doing? Now we've got a different issue, which is we probably won't go up unless we moneyball it, because the money being spent is way more than what we can spend. So we have to keep the story interesting. That's the pressure we put on ourselves. You're talking about the budgets for step 2 and step 3, but what happens if you get to step 3 and you're there for 5-10 years? Is that a problem for you?
It's not a problem. No, it's not a problem. Yeah, ultimately, I'm trying. This isn't just about promotion. It's about the town. Like, I want Bedford to do well. I want more people playing football. I'm almost not thinking about that. Again, I'm not going to make a plan for being stuck in step 3 for 5-10 years. What I'm going to make a plan every season is, what can we do to challenge for the league of that season? Yeah. What can we do? Now, look, we might get to a point that's like, what can we do to make sure we don't get relegated?
Yeah.
It might be that when we hit, if we were lucky enough to get to National South, it's like, we just got to make sure we stay up. But I've got to deal with one season at a time. I can't plan for 10 years. The only other thing on my mind is purely the sustainability. I'm like you. It's like, I'm not gonna risk the future of the club to go as quickly as possible. I want to do it in the most sustainable way possible. And so I think constantly about revenue. I'm always thinking about, how can I de-risk the sponsorship revenue? Because what if that changes? Yeah. That'll massively change our club.
Because a lot of your sponsors obviously are related to the crypto space and the Bitcoin space and all these things that you're so synonymous with. What is there? Are they sponsoring because of what they actually physically get in deliverables and the exposure the kit gets and all these sorts of things? Or is it a lot of it about this kind of philosophy, if you like, that they love that you represent what they do? Like, what's the thing that you offer in them the best, do you think? Because ours is obviously ours is YouTube eyeballs. That's what we offer.
I think it's a few things. I think firstly, there's we are the Bitcoin club. They want to be involved in it. They want to support it. They want to support me. They buy the vision. Bitcoin itself. We're always Bitcoin, not crypto.
Yeah, sorry, Bitcoin. I should say that. Yeah,
all
Bitcoin.
That shite.
Yeah.
So we, I think they're buying into the journey. They want to come to the games. They want to become part of it. I think there's only one space on the front of the shirt, so it's a bit of prestige to be the one that has it.
Yeah.
I think they understand the eyeballs, that they understand the exposure they get because I've got the podcast as well. So I think there's a range of reasons. I think a lot of them just like the idea of, the thing about Bitcoin is it's kind of like a war of narrative. What people outside of Bitcoin think it is to what we think it is internally is usually quite different. There's so much misunderstanding with it, and it's always under attack. So you feel like as a group of people together, you're working together to just try and explain to people what it is and why it's important. And so we're kind of all in it together. So having our own football team that takes people on, like this is our team.
Yeah.
Real Bedford is the Bitcoin team.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that people want to become part of. So sponsorships have been, fairly, not too hard to get. I mean, I have to work at it. But I think also it's kind of like they see the end goal. They see this kind of vision of getting a team up into the football league and the exposure that'll get. And I think they just want to be part of it.
What can you do? I know you've done some stuff already. Like, how can you Bitcoinify the match experience and the club and things like, I mean, it's assuming I'm kind of a novice to all this stuff anyway, but let's assume anyone listening is like super unfamiliar with Bitcoin. Like, how much can you push the envelope in how Bitcoin friendly your football team is, as opposed to just having it as branding on a shirt? Yeah,
it's a good question. So the way we think about the match day experience is if you don't care about Bitcoin, that's fine. You come along, you give your tenner to come into the, £8 to come into the game, you buy your beer and you watch the game, you leave. That's totally fine. If you want to learn about Bitcoin, if you've heard about it, you're interested, or you're a bit worried about inflation and government debt, and you keep hearing these same messages, well, once a month we have a Bitcoin meetup before a game. So I'll be there with 50, 100 people just talking about various things to do with Bitcoin. Maybe have a special guest. And then if you want to buy your ticket with Bitcoin, you can. You want to buy your beers and burger with Bitcoin, you can. So you can have a full Bitcoin experience if you want, or none at all.
Got it.
And we don't want to force it on anyone. There's an article on our website that says why you should not buy Bitcoin.
Right.
Like, because I look at Crawley Town, everything they did, and I completely disagree with it.
Yeah.
I think they just encouraged, we call them shitcoiners. They encouraged a bunch of people to buy these stupid NFTs where they all lost money. And I just completely disagree with that. I don't want someone to feel like they have to buy Bitcoin because of our football club. If you just want to learn about it, we'll teach you about it. And so, I'm very careful with that. Also, I don't want loads of people to buy Hometown buying Bitcoin and misunderstanding it and losing money and blaming me, because it's a difficult asset to understand. I know your brother does because we spoke about it.
Yeah, he understands it a lot more than I do. The interesting thing there, though, I think, is that you could have a world where you could have people that are Bitcoin lovers and don't particularly follow soccer, especially the American, but get into it because of you.
Yeah.
You could have people in the area that love football, don't know anything about Bitcoin, that support you, and you can have the middle ground as well. So it's a nice way. But mention the Crawley thing. I think what actually helps teams like us is we're both getting to learn on the job in a much lower pressure environment. No disrespect to these leagues, but Crawley have gone in at League Two. Not only have they gone in at League Two, they've gone in with a club that's already really overperforming based on their fan base. Like they're sort of shooting, punching above their weight, really.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, maybe one of the, I don't want to say mistakes, but I know they were sort of trying to do a Wrexham, but the genius of Wrexham is that it was a sleeping giant. Local to here, the equivalent was Southend, who recently got bought. Club that's been in the Championship previously, sitting in the National League. Points deductions, those are HMRC issues. That was the time to buy them because you can only go up. It's like getting a stock at the bottom. It's going to go up. Crawley where was the growth potential? That was, I think, it went wrong. And then I also think with these, back in the day, before Bitcoin and stuff like this, there was something called My Football Club with Gravesend and Ebbsfleet.
I remember,
And they sort of pioneered this idea of you buy, I think it was like £60 a year or something, maybe £120 a year, and you were a board member. And it was completely novel at the time. I think they were even letting the fans pick the team and stuff like this at times, which generally ends terribly. But really, really unique idea. Problem was they had to buy it again the second year, and the second year people were over it. So suddenly they go from having this huge budget to having no money whatsoever, and there's no one else that wants to put the money in because the fans are making all the decisions.
Exactly.
So it's a bit of a, we've got Real Oviedo branding around here. It's the club I've got a really good relationship with, but that relationship came from a time over 10 years ago now where they were really on hard times. They were previously a La Liga team. They won La Liga many times in the early 20th century. Really famous Spanish team from northern Spain. And they were now finding themselves in the fourth tier, which once you drop out the second tier in Spain, they call it the whole, because you can it's like 8 divisions at the same level. You can win the league and not go up. It's super hard. You have to win the league, then you have to win a playoff. Really hard to get out of. But they played on this history of the club. They'd had players like Michu, Cazorla, Mata all come through there. They'd been in the Europa League, I think maybe in the early 2000s. So they had this history, but they're in the lowest possible ebb they could have been at, and they started selling shares. And it was like €8 a share. The share meant absolutely nothing. It was something like, I think as shareholders, we own something like 40% of the club. And so we had some voting rights and whatever. I made it loads out of it because I went and made, content with them. So I got a real relationship with the club. So I've really made it look like this is the dream as a shareholder. But the reality is most people paid €8 for absolutely nothing. And what happened is about a month after, and I say this with someone that is still very much involved in Oviedo and love Oviedo, and they're really close to getting back to La Liga. They're in the playoff spots in the second tier right now. So it'd be amazing if we do. And we've been out there with hashtag and all sorts. But ultimately, what happened about is a couple of months after that share raise, they sold 50% of the club to Carlos Slim, one of the richest men in the world. And he basically called all the shots from then on. So those shares were meaningless. And that's like, again, there's loads of different ways. Like we're thinking about it now. We may well have an update on this podcast soon where we might give fans an opportunity to have equity in the club. But we're only going to do it if that is meaningful and it's protected. It's not like, can we raise some money? Cool. You sit in the corner and never be heard. It is, if they're going to come in, depending on what we can make available to them, they need to be part of it. Inspired by these Bundesliga teams. We've got the whole 50+1 rule.
Yeah.
I think St. Pauli is probably
I love them.
Similar branding and stuff. It's really cool. And again, a club that loads of people know way more about than they should because of the level they actually play at in Germany.
We stole their tunnel idea.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, the tunnel,
Loved it.
Yeah, so that's like, talking about the tunnel idea because you're trying to create that quite intimidating atmosphere, right?
Yeah, no. So people are like, "You've copied St. Pauli." I was like, "Yeah, I have. It's amazing. You should be inspired by good ideas." As soon as I saw their tunnel, I was like, "That's great." So yeah, we just we made our tunnel black. We graffitied it. We have the red downlights in, and then I've got like this kind of hardcore heavy metal playlist that comes in. So when people come in, it's just like, rah.
What about do the players ever talk about that? Because like, what if you're a player for Real Bedford, but you like hate heavy metal? Like, is that an issue?
No, because they love it because it's me.
Okay,
so
they get it.
And they just they want to support that, and they get in the dressing room and they put on whatever nonsense is they're listening to now. But
have you seen any increase in home win percentage since you introduced the tunnel?
Well, I can't say we have.
You've seen an increase in everything.
Yeah, so we've just got we're back-to-back potential this year. We've got a high win rate. What you do see is sometimes teams bottle it in the first 10 minutes, but that could be the fact that they've turned up and they felt intimidated. They're coming against the top of the league. It just hasn't worked. Other teams have, we've lost at home to teams that we wouldn't expect to. Maybe they've come in and said, "Bollocks to this, we're going to have it with you." So I don't actually know. I can't say if it makes a difference. I just want to have a football club that's a bit different. Yeah, every club's the same. Yeah,
exactly. Like, what do they say? They say stealing from copying from one person is stealing. Copying from 1,000 people is inspiration or something like that. Like literally everything I've ever done on YouTube has been a rehash of another idea. There is no new ideas.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I mean, I think St. Pauli is brilliant what they've done. I love their branding, and absolutely they've inspired us. And hopefully we'll go sometime. Actually, I think we should make friends with them.
Yeah, 100%.
They're a team we should be linked with.
You should be. I mean, we got to play at Dulwich Hamlet this year away, which was our record attendance at non-league games, 3,500 people. But it's more than that. Everything they do as a club is what resonates with me as a person. Like their anti-fascism, anti-homophobia, all this stuff. When we sat down after 1 year of non-league and we had like an internal, because you got to remember, like we came out of nowhere. Like we were literally, me and my mates playing football. Suddenly we were in non-league. We never even stopped to think about like what we actually are as a team. Like who are we? Why are we? It was just something I wanted to do that powered it all. So we had to think those things. And we sat down in a room and I was like, just looked at Dulwich Hamlet. I said, I want to be like them. Like they do things the right way. They're trying to be a force for good in football. They're super like they're very representational and inclusive, and obviously they had a women's football team, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to get into women's football and all this stuff. Like you got to find those teams, and if you can make friends with them, great. But certainly, like the idea that someone would be annoyed with someone copying another team because they're doing things the right way is ludicrous. It's silly. In business, it happens all the time.
Look, if people want to copy us, look, there's been, like I say, there's 3 or 4 other Bitcoin teams. They've all reached out to us, said, we're thinking of doing this. Can we jump on a call? And I say, yeah. I tell them exactly what we've done, how we've done it. I tell them the challenges they're going to have. And one of the teams even came over to watch a game. And the 2 of the guys flew over. Nice. And, we'll help them. We'll help anyone. If anyone wants ideas or us to copy us or want to know what we're up to, give us a shout. I mean, it's we can all learn from each other.
What I like about it was I learned it myself when we played you guys. It's like
smashed us.
But this women's football is even in the same league last year. We were playing teams we were winning 10, 12, 13-0. Like that's started to level out the level we've got to now. We're not like we played London. We're playing London Bees again this weekend. We played them twice already because we played them in the quarterfinal of the National League Cup 2 weeks ago. And like they are dead bottom of our league. They haven't won a game this season, and we only just beat them. Like whereas last year, and we're in the top of our league, top versus bottom was 10 goals. Like you could say before the game started, there would be 10 goals deficit between the home and away team, the best and the worst team, guaranteed. That third tier, it just isn't like that.
How tight is it at the top?
Well, we lost to Portsmouth the other day, which in their place, which was a big blow, and they just beat Ipswich on the weekend. So we're 3 points behind them, but they've got 2 games in hand. Okay. And we don't play them again. So realistically, and you have to obviously win the league to go up.
Yeah.
So for us to go up now, would either need a complete collapse from Portsmouth. We still have to win all our remaining games, and we have some tough ones. It would require Portsmouth not to get a license, which would be interesting. But it's never happened before. No one's ever won Tier 3 and not been given a license. But let me tell you, and it's very linked to the conversation we're having today, actually. It's something that you'll no doubt have to go through at some point. It is a very interesting process. Like, I don't want to go after anyone, accuse anyone of putting up the time, but there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. It's all about interpretation of where women's football is. They believe, and I think many people will say they're right about this. You know,
I've got thoughts on all of this.
Yeah, the best way to grow the women's game, because it's so different to the men's game. The men's game is so established. They've had such big TV deals for so long. The women's game is still trying to get these huge TV deals. And they have obviously got recorded deal last time, but they want to grow it. So from a sales perspective, you've got to remember, the TV, there's less games, 12 teams in every league, 22 league games. They need the product to be the best it can be. And for whatever reason, they interpret that as it looks better on TV when there's crowds there, which obviously makes sense. So when they see a team like us who don't have the biggest crowds, certainly not, you've got to remember, it's not like the men. We're competing with like Portsmouth, Ipswich, MK Dons. You know, last year, clubs like AFC Wimbledon, like huge football clubs that have been around 100 years, that have tens of thousands of people going to their men's team games. They have such a large catchment of people they can get to go to their women's games.
What are you getting at the moment?
We get like less than 100 on average at our women's games, which, you know, is not what they want ultimately in the league. So it's sort of made very clear to you that like they don't really want you to go up, sort of thing. And there's a lot of teams in that.
What have they got in the license that stops that?
There is they want to work towards an average of 1,000. They want teams to be working towards an average of 1,000 fans at a game.
Yeah, but that's just not, bollocks.
Yeah, it's working towards. This is my argument. Is essentially it's a box ticking exercise. What they have in the license though is a lot of other things that are, you know, trying to get people to understand. It's not just like our men's team going up. It's actually like our men's team going to League One overnight. Like that's what the promotion is. It's like you have to spend. Like I'm not going to name the name, but there's a team in the Championship League above us who are looking. There's a very good chance they get relegated this year, and their budget's £1 million just for their women's team. Like, I'm not going to go into detail on here what our women's budget is, but let's just say it is not even in the same ballpark, right? So, like, ultimately, you're being asked as an independent club to risk the future of your club to go up, which for me isn't how it should work. You know, if Luton, good example, because not from a million miles from you, were only allowed to go up to the Prem when they were Prem ready, they wouldn't be allowed to go. They wouldn't have been allowed to go up. The stadium wasn't. Their Bournemouth stadium wasn't up to scratch when they went up. Like there's loads of things that. And women's game, there is no tolerance. There is no. You get a year to do this because they want it to be this super slick TV package. They don't care about the fact that our Instagram numbers dwarf a lot of WSL clubs.
Spence, listen, I've got some thoughts on this. So, like you, honestly, I love the women's game now. Like I had no exposure to the women's game before we did this, and now I go to every game like the men's, like you do. Yeah. And I'm just as annoyed when we lose either or. And the games are different, right?
Yeah.
And the two sets of squads are very different, but I love it. And I think a football club is a men's and ladies team and boys and girls structure, right? But I've seen so many own goals on the ladies' side. They did it this season with the FA Cup when they announced the increase of sponsorship halfway through the competition.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, do you think we don't know what's going on there? You think we don't know that wasn't already agreed? And we also know that you could have equally distributed that amongst all the teams that are in it. That's gatekeeping the money to the higher teams. It's never going to end well. My worry is this new code they're doing is they're trying to accelerate the growth of the women's game so quickly. They're almost going to create this this kind of like wealth divide in the league
100%.
where teams just cannot compete. And so
not to use the word, because obviously the top flight is called the Women's Super League, but it is what they're doing is Super League in the sense of what the men's game tried to do. They're creating a us and them. They don't want Real Bedford. They don't want hashtag. They want, but we're at the same level as Newcastle United. Well, Newcastle need to go up. They're in the Northern League. They want Newcastle up. They want all these teams I've just mentioned that we're beating. Like we beat Southend United 17-0. Like that's, I always mention that one because Southend, I literally was born in a house that overlooks their ground. That's the club that I grew up with, right? And it's mad to me that we can beat them. Like, and that, we've beaten Norwich 8-0, like the Norwich, right? They've got all the Premier League, parachute money, all the money they could spend on the women's team. And my team that I made from nothing beat them 8-0 or whatever. Yes, they knocked us out the FA Cup this year, but we had about 28 shots to their 1. The point is, that's going to change. Fast forward 5 to 10 years, it will be, by design, a very similar to look into the Premier League, top league, and it will be very similar to look into the Championship in terms of the teams that are in there. You've got teams like Lewis, you've got teams like Durham, London City Lionesses, independent clubs in the Women's Championship. They won't be there.
Yeah,
they're not going to be the next few years. And that's a shame, because one of the things that attracted me to women's football is the chance to reimagine the status quo based on the people that care, not based on who've got the most money.
Well, they set the standard with what they did with Man United.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Which was
even West Ham we talked about it with Jack. They got to jump 2 divisions because they had the right business study. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, where I differ on it is I think if a club is doing everything right, because I think the league should have double the amount of teams in it. I know there's always arguments about travel and stuff, but like if you really want to get all these teams in, just make the Women's Championship and the Super League one league with 24 teams or 20 teams, whatever you want to do, and then let everyone be part of the puzzle, because that's the uniqueness of it. It's a brand new thing that's only really been taken properly the seriousness it deserves in the last sort of 5 years, and let's celebrate that by not punishing the people who've been doing it properly since before then.
But didn't the Man U thing, when they gave Man U the WSL status, it cost someone their promotion?
The famous one I remember, and I don't want to get the club wrong.
Was it Billericay?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was Billericay. I think it was it Bristol? There was a team that was a Women's Super League team that ended up dropping at least 1, if not 2 divisions based on a licence. Yeah. Like not getting a licence, and they were in the Super League by merit. Swindon, I can't remember who it was now. Someone in the comments will know. But this is the problem. But women's football is quite franchisee, and all the things that we sort of, there is examples. I mean, we were able to do it, right? There was a club called AFC Basildon that was the best team in Essex that were on their knees a little bit because their chairman had gone and they had no money and they had relegation and they were not looking like they were going to get back to where they'd earned their place on merit. So we were able to team up with them, right place, right time, all for the right reasons, and help that team get back to where it belonged, which we did. Yeah. Equally, in our league this year, you got Chatham. So last year, Chatham were Gillingham Town. Support was pulled from the men's team, so they were able to rebrand as Chatham, another part of Kent. Coventry, who beat us in the FA Cup last year, not affiliated with Coventry City. Coventry United got relegated from the Championship. This year, they reformed as Rugby Borough. If that happened in the men's game, it's only happened once, right? It's AFC Wimbledon.
Yep.
And not AFC Wimbledon to MK Dons. And there was outrage, and it was almost like, I think it was like even put into some sort of government like law that it couldn't be done again in England. Whereas in the women's game, they allow it, and their argument is because it's best for the women's game. And I'm on board with it if no one's losing from it, so to speak.
But sometimes I'm like, are you talking about, is this best for the women's game, or is this best for the top 12 teams in the women's game, or 24? I feel like some of the behaviour is a little bit like this European Super League behaviour. Like, I think it's heading towards there, and I think you could get to a point where teams just can't break into it, and it's a closed group, and I just think that'll be bad for the game.
No,
I think it sends a bad message. It sends a bad message to players.
It's very similar to what's happened in esports, right? So in esports, we've won it a couple of times actually. The EPL, the E-Premier League, it's the FIFA gaming version of the Premier League. And obviously they want to emulate the real life Premier League. So there's 20 teams in the Premier League. And even so, obviously everything the Premier League's voted for. So 14 of the 20 teams have to vote for anything to change. And they vote to have this in favour of this EPL. What it means is when they say to win the E-Premier League this year, you have to be a Premier League team. So for example, #United could never enter it. What we did is we loaned players to Tottenham or to Bournemouth, to whoever, and they won it in their kit, but they're contracted to us. What you're doing is you're basically making certain teams play in something they don't want to be in. There's Premier League teams that literally don't care about esports, that don't want it, and so they go, we have to do it because it's been voted for, so just give it to a competition winner. And you've got all these amazing orgs. We're just one of them. There's loads of others. They're doing everything right. They just get the door closed on them. And it's like, how does that make competitive sense?
Yeah. But
that's the issue.
Don't you like being like the underdog as well sometimes, to just fight these people?
Well, I do. I don't like fighting people for the sake of it. I do like sort of championing the we're going to be biased, and people are always going to say we're biased and we're arguing for what we're in favour of. But I don't think it's that. It's that actually I've made a club that is the direct image of the way I feel about sport. So when I say those same things publicly, I'm not saying them to protect my club. My club's like that because that's how I am. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just being consistent, and I just think that what it does to me is sometimes it makes me think differently. Like when we joined non-league, we had to think about whether we even wanted to join non-league because we had an opportunity not to. We'd been pretty successful never being in a league. So we knew we couldn't keep playing in the team as individuals. We're getting older and stuff. But there was other ways I could have reinvented the team. You look at things like, Kings League in Spain and all these things. We had ideas like that. We were doing things called the Next Level League that weren't dissimilar. And we even had investment lined up for that. We ultimately joined non-league because I'm a fanboy of the non-league. I love promotion and that idea of it. But, there is a world outside of it where you can exist. And there's also a world within non-league where you don't have to build a business that is reliant on promotions. Our business suffers every time we get promoted because our costs double and the sponsors don't. Because we're not at a level where going up a league changes the story that exponentially. It's not like, we're suddenly Wrexham, we've got into the EFL where the TV money comes in and it just goes crazy. We just lose more money when we go up. So we're doing it off like just sporting desire. And when I see things like what we're experiencing with the Women's League at the moment, and we have to go for this license application, I just think, do we even want to go up? Because obviously I want to go up as a competitive man, but is it going to harm the club because we're getting made to do these things that aren't... If I won that league, I say, if Hashtag Women won that league, it would be a direct result of people like our manager and everyone involved in the club doing an incredible job. Obviously the players with way less budget than the other teams. We're not buying any leagues. We never have, but this year even less so. We have nowhere near the highest budget. We'd be made to change our whole model overnight from a Moneyball system to you have to spend way more money than you've ever spent before, just to not because you'll go down if you don't, because we won't let you in if you don't.
But you'll do it. You'll find a way.
Well, we could find a way, but you have to sort of.
It's just headaches.
You think about the identity of your club though. How linked is it to other people's rules? And what are we trying to achieve? And this is like literally my sort of stream of consciousness. I don't have an answer. Because if everything we've done comes from YouTube, right, and you get these amazing people that come up to you and say, thanks for making these videos, you genuinely give me something to watch and all that, you think, well, that's what we do then, really, isn't it? Like, obviously, we're going to win games. That's what we like to aim towards. But if we can't do that anymore because we made a decision based on ego to go to that league and we ran out of money because, let's be honest, right, if we got to Women's Championship, our sponsors aren't going up anywhere near the level that the costs will.
What's the cost? The base cost?
Well, so obviously it's full time, right? Yeah. So you have to train a minimum of 15 hours a week, every player. That's minimum wage. So I run a rough estimate on it. I don't think you could reach the minimums in that league without spending at least 600 grand, right?
Yeah.
But then there's teams that are looking like they're going to get relegated to spend $1 million. So that's not just the costs of it aren't just related to the training. There's certain people you have to employ and they have a minimum wage you have to pay them, a general manager, a marketing manager, all these things. Your ground has to have certain, obviously, ground grading that is extreme, like National League level minimum, really. But then no time to catch up like you get in the National League. Like we could go to the National League South in the men's team, and apart from ground grading, nothing really changes. No one makes you do anything. Yeah. So if we want to go, well, we're not paying the players anyway, everyone else pays, and it works for us. We're just doing it better than everyone else.
Yeah, I don't get why they've done this. You don't want to gatekeep stuff and you don't want to have this kind of wealth divide between clubs and other teams not be able to get there. I think it's ultimately destructive. Like the power of the football, the power of our football is the league structure. If you go out to America, you know what American sports are like. It's socialist, right? Yeah. It's a flat structure. There's no promotion relegation. Once you get them into our football and you explain to them promotion and relegation, they love it. Yeah. They love that idea. Like, what do you mean you go up? What, you pay bigger teams? That's incredible. And they love that. What they're doing is essentially removing that layer. Yeah. They've done it in rugby. They did it in rugby. Like Bedford, where I'm from, they can't get in the Premier League. By the way, I don't know a lot about rugby, but I know they can't get in the Premier League because the size of the stadium, they want 10,000 seat stadiums. And Bedford doesn't have that. But that's a barrier. That's a barrier to entry for a team that could get it through meritocracy because the business is right and they pick the right players. This all should be it should be a meritocracy. I understand certain ground gradings, right? I totally get that. But I don't even think the average attendance in rugby is above 10,000. Well,
so it doesn't make sense. This one will blow your mind. Yeah. So they have a rule in women's football, which is, because obviously, let's use Arsenal, for example. They play the games at Boreham Wood, right? So they'll play a certain amount of games a year in the Emirates, and that's a rule. They have to. Yeah. And obviously, they do it right. They pick the right game. They'll end up getting loads of 30,000, 40,000 people. St James's Park had 40,000 people watching a women's game. This is unbelievable, and it's great for the game. And
love it.
Everyone's for it. Yeah, sometimes the tickets will be free, or they'll be £1 or whatever. It doesn't make a lot of financial sense, but it doesn't matter because it's great for the women's game, and we all are on board. So the Championship has the same rule. So you have to have, I think, 2 games a year in a, what's the word they use? Not professional stadium, arena stadium or something like that. So our women currently play at Aveley, so non-league, National League graded ground. That wouldn't qualify, right? So it's not like we own the Emirates and our men play there and our women don't play there. They're going, well, you have to play in an arena stadium. So this is a team who has an average home attendance of 100 people, women's football. They're like, we'd have to hire Roots Hall twice a year. So to meet their requirements, we'd have to go to a local team like Southend with an EFL grounded grade and hire it so 100 people can sit in Roots Hall. How is that good for the game? Because the money it costs us to rent that stadium is coming out of somewhere else. Yeah. So it's not going to the girls. Or it's not going, do you know what I mean? Like that is, I get it. If you're a Premier League team and you've got Premier League ground, make them play in it because it's great and they're going to get people in there. But anyone can look at our club and know that's not going to result in you getting more people in there. And that's why they don't want us in there.
Yeah, look, I think it comes from a place of good intentions.
It does.
But I just think you've got to keep the meritocracy in sport.
Yeah.
And also, you can't have too much of a separation between the men's and the women's game in terms of the rules and the structure. Because if you do that, you're saying fundamentally they're different sports, and they're not. They should have exactly the same structure.
Yeah.
And you know what? Those teams who invest, like you, who've done it, you should be rewarded for it. And those who've chosen not to shouldn't. And I still don't think Man U should have gone straight in the WSL.
But the reality is, we're not going to be able to keep doing what we're doing, right? So eventually, we won't. This is why we should be allowed to just win it on merit. Because eventually the money will come into the game. And like our budget right now, if all the team with the money start spending at women's football, which they don't, but I think it's going to be a rule eventually. I think Premier League teams will be asked to spend like 1% of their revenue on women's football or something, and it will be enough to get them to the top. If everyone starts doing that, hashtag will level out in like the 5th or 6th tier probably. Because there'll be too many big teams.
You don't know where hashtag itself will be.
Well, no, of course. I'm talking about current budgets.
Yeah.
Current budgets, like, you know, when you consider that the teams are only 12-team leagues, we'll end up being way lower than we are. We're shooting way above our weight because big teams aren't spending. And I say it all the time. I actually challenge these teams. I say, we shouldn't be beating you 8-0. You've got a men's team in the Premier League or the Championship. You should be beating us. And if I was just looking out for hashtag, I would never say that. I would just keep it quiet and hope we can keep doing it. But I want to see the women's game grow. It's so sad that as soon as a men's team have any sort of financial trouble, the first thing that goes is the women's team. They cut it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if when Hummelwall fell apart for us, I'd just gone, right, sack the women's team off.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Well, we just have two separate budgets.
Yeah,
and luckily we got a separate sponsor this year that paid, that enabled us to do what we did. But I was worried at the start of the season because I set the goal. I said to the manager, I want you to win the league. Tell me what you need. And again, he told us. But Luton got in the Premier League and Luton are in our division. Now, they're not fully linked. It's weird. Right. It's one of those ones where it's kind of they're kind of linked, but they're not the same thing. But they have the same badge. But I just thought Luton will go plough loads of money. Look, 20 grand is going to win you that league like that. And how much are Luton getting for going into the Premier League?
Yeah, 100 mil.
100 mil. So they could have easily said, go on, here's 20 grand, just get yourself promoted. Or can we acquire you? Can we merge you? And they just didn't. I mean, luckily for us, because they could have done it and we couldn't have outspent them. And I'm always surprised by it. I mean, we've got Stevenage in our league. I like Stevenage, it's a good club. I know one of the directors well. Again, I was worried about them putting just a bit of money in. You don't have to put much money into a tier 5 ladies team to get them up to 4, and even from 4 to 3. I think it gets a lot harder there. But I'm just amazed they don't do it. In us doing it, I think we get that money back in them coming to our games anyway, come to the men's games as well. So I just don't get the logic.
Well, people are amazed. Like one of our fan favourite players this year, Sasha Adamson, moved to Fulham.
Right.
And she's playing in Craven Cottage, great player, scoring loads of goals. And to the outside looking in, that's an amazing move, right? Hashtag to Fulham. And it is, I'm really happy for her and like good luck to her. But she's gone 2 divisions lower. This is the bit that people don't understand. Like Fulham, are 2 divisions below hashtag United. And I think it's amazing to be able to play for a club like that and, do those things and play in Premier League stadiums. It's great, but they are 2 divisions below us. Like there is a reality to women's football, which is just uncanny. And that is going to go. It will just become a mirror of the men's game. I think it's almost unavoidable now, really. Yeah. But
going back to the men, how have you found step 3? Because everyone I've spoke to have said that's the biggest jump. One of the biggest jumps you'll go through is 4 to 3.
I think the big change is everyone has money because most teams have money because the gates are so much bigger. So that's the thing. Like we're just getting over 1,000 people away games like every week now. Whereas you could easily go away team in step 4 and have 100 people there still.
Yeah.
So like that's the big change. There's more money for sure. The money at the top end of the league is crazy compared to what it was before. It doesn't have to make sense. Me and you are trying to make clubs that make sense. You make a budget and you're a hole in it. You go, okay, I need to fill that hole. How can I do it? They're like happy with the holes. They don't care about the holes. They just make the holes bigger as long as we get to this league because it's mostly rich guys or whoever They just want to get to that league to say they've done it. Yeah. Well, the money's coming from all kinds of places.
Yeah.
We've talked about it on here, but like it doesn't have to make any kind of sense.
Yeah.
And that is frustrating. And I think that is why, if I was to use my crystal ball and look forward 5 years from now in a world where maybe SC Dons have got a non-league team and, you know, Farnham are doing what Farnham are doing and you guys are climbing and all that stuff, I think teams like us will all end up leveling out around there personally. I'm not saying you can't keep going. I think you've got maybe some of the most potential to get that better revenue model. But for people like us that are based on who watches the YouTube videos, and obviously the nature of the beast is the longer we go, the less novel it is because more people are doing it. So you have to find new ways to keep that audience happy. I can see us all being sort of step-free teams and hopefully with big fan bases that go over a long period of time. It takes decades to get that up.
We wouldn't meet in step 3, would we? It'd be step 2 if we
I think you'd go into the Southern League, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we'd go to Southern Prem. So,
yeah, which is weird because we would in the women's game.
Yeah.
Because, obviously it's the whole Southern area, step 3, but even step 4, I think we'd have been in the same league probably, South East, because we used to play against Stevenage in our league. Things like that. But
you need a stadium though, don't you?
We do. That's way more important than any more promotions for us now, getting the ground thing sorted.
Have you ever thought of adding a location to the name? Becoming like London hashtags or Essex hashtags?
Yeah, no, I've 100% thought about it. I think in the short term, like for example, I won't name names, but there was a ground that came available potentially. It was a team we used to be in the league of, and it's sort of within London, like the Tube network. It's not a million miles from here. It's technically still Essex. But like that's the uniqueness we have. Is you'd obviously want to always be within a sort of Bedford area.
Yeah.
We could go 20 miles here and there if it makes sense to the club because there's no one stopping us basically. And our fans aren't even from any area, so they wouldn't even see it as a negative. So this opportunity came up, and I was like, that would be where you'd put like London in the name because it appeals to still a really wide audience. Your brand can still be a global brand. And it's not. It always baffles me how few teams have the word London in their name.
What's the highest placed team with London in the name?
Well, there's London City Lionesses in the women's game, which is championship.
We got London Lions in our division.
Yeah, so in the men's game, it might be them. Honestly, it's
I'd
weird.
take it.
Yeah, you've also got even like Essex. There's only really one team I can think of Essex in it, which is West Essex. I used to be in their league. Like, obviously, people want generally to have a catchment name that is smaller and more, but it depends what your overall pitch is. If your pitch is like ours is, everyone can watch us.
Yeah.
Then London is better, or Essex, or whatever. So I've always thought about that. I didn't need to do it. I've never needed to do it at any point.
Yeah.
We wanted to maintain the brand that got us the support in the first place. But I've always been open to any kind of name change that improves the club. So it's not like we're putting our fork in the ground and go, we'll never change our name because fuck you. We just don't need to, and there's never been a good business argument for it. You know, one of the things we have talked about with certain clubs, and I've got a really abstract idea for this that I'll probably pitch in a future podcast down the line. But one of the ways we could beat the system and get a ground without sort of just leveraging all the club and putting it in loads of debt would be to do a merger with another club. And I think there could be opportunities for mergers. And with the right merger, there would be a name brand change. It's just making sure it's the right one. And
isn't there a rule like you have to, if you merge two teams, you have to be in the lower division?
The lower league,
yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest obstacles to mergers. So really, if you're really worried about that, then you can only merge with teams you're in the same league as.
Yeah.
And you have to submit the merger before December for it to be in place for the next season. So even then there's a gamble. What if one of us goes down?
Yeah.
So you agreed a merger. Say we were in the same league and we agreed a merger in December, and then one of us went down, we'd both go down.
Because Bury did it, didn't they?
Did they merge or did they come back as a Phoenix?
I thought they merged. I think there was a merger between the two Berries. I mean, aren't they getting like crowds of 5,000?
You mean Bury is in up north Bury?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were a Phoenix club. And they
they?
died and came the same as Macclesfield, I think. They became AFC Bury or what have you. Macclesfield Town became Macclesfield FC. But there's loads of mergers around here. There's billions of examples. I mean, Bowers and Pitsea, where we play, was Bowers and Pitsea. Malden and Tiptree was Malden and Tiptree. It's very, very common way. The difference with mergers, I find, is that usually, and this isn't always, but usually it's two teams that are struggling. And it's like, okay, we haven't got the resources we need. If we pool resources, everyone's a winner. We're not struggling. We're just trying to beat the system. Like, all these teams, we played a team called South Park this year in the FA Cup, South Park Reigate. And they had this really good facility, 4G pitch, second 4G next to it, huge grass pitches everywhere, all the youth team player. And they told us in the committee room afterwards that their rent is £1 a year. Right? And not only that, it's all protected. It's in like the King Charles Trust or whatever. They're going to be given it next year or whatever it is. Like, if I've quoted you wrong, I apologise, but it's something on that ballpark. We're never going to get that. We're just too late. Like no one's giving away Green Belt areas. Certainly not areas that can be developed. Aveley, where our women play, they had a ground. They'd been in there a number of years. They had an opportunity to sell that ground to have, flats, houses built there. Take that money, millions of pounds, build one of the best non-league grounds in the country, and have money left over. Like the only way we're ever going to get something like that is if someone that's a fan leaves us something when they die, which does happen to non-league clubs, but our problem, most of our fans are 60 years away from death. That's not a problem. That's a good thing. We love your fans. And then the other thing is for a merger. That's our version of beating the system, is going to a club rather than let's merge with a club when, we're down on our knees. Let's find another team that's flying. We're flying. Let's become a super club. So we go like divisions beyond what either team could achieve on their own. You've got what we need, i.e. a stadium, maybe a good fan base already, and what we can come in is we can bring a whole new business model to the club overnight. We can put all our media, against your club and it becomes one club. That is something I'm interested in exploring. It's very specific sort of variables.
So a lot has got to align to make that work as well.
The biggest challenge we'll have will be the merging clubs, like fan base and the history of that club, because the minute you merge, you change the history of that club forever. Yeah.
When you look at step 3 where you are now and, the season you're having at the moment, do you look at it and still think, look, we can do it next year, we can do it this year? Like, how far away do you think?
Playoffs are very... They're not mathematically beyond us, but it would be a bit ludicrous to think we're going to do it now, I think.
But do you look at it and go, next season, we think we can have a go, or do you think you've found the level?
I think we might have got playoffs this year if we didn't suffer horrendous injuries at Christmas. So we lost five starting players for all of January. Our worst ever run of games ever. What was it? 7 games without a win. Never had that before. Won 1 in 8, I think. But previous to that, we'd had 10 unbeaten. And we were right on the playoffs, and we just lost both centre mids, centre back, striker, and our winger went to bloody Love Island again. Right, so half the team gone. Yeah. Obviously, the lads that come in have done fantastic, to be honest, because we didn't even really deserve to lose half those games, and they're young. We're a young side. Our plan wasn't to push for promotion this year in terms of the money we've spent, but we always felt we could moneyball it and get in the playoffs maybe. Well, first year at step 4 was the same. We started off quite poor, adjusted the level, ended up finishing 8th, just missing out in the playoffs. I think we'll end up finishing around midpoint this year. But if we hadn't had the injuries, I think we'd have either been in the playoffs or just outside. Again, young squad. A lot of our squad never played this level before. So whatever happens, even if we finish bottom of the league, it's still our best ever finish because we're in a new height. But reality is we won't go down, I don't think. We'll sit in the middle somewhere, and then our aim will be next year to finish higher than that. And if we finish end around 10th, 9th, 8th, which would be amazing, then higher than that, you're very close to the playoffs. The money spent in this league, like I know when you're planning your budgets, because you've got somewhere you want to be, you're thinking about how can I, be competitive and try and win that league or get in the playoffs. We're at a point now where we can't think like that anymore. We're at a point now where what guarantees, as much as anything guarantees safety, make sure we don't go down. And then what sort of squad can we put together in a Moneyball system whereby we underspend but over-deliver and maybe end up in the playoffs.
Look, and there's teams that do it. I mean, Northley in Bedford Town's league, they don't have a budget anywhere near Bedford Town. They're up there competing.
Yeah, it's doable.
So it is doable. Oh, no, but that's step 4.
But the difference is, if you have the money, like I'll use Hornchurch as an example, they're probably going to win our league this year. They have spent big money for many years and they've missed out. They've lost the playoffs. They've just narrowly missed out a number of years. If they keep spending that money, they will 100% go up. Whether it's this year, next year, year after, they will be a National League South side.
That's what Wrexham did. They eventually got there.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got the money and it's like you're in a casino and you go on red and you lose, you double it again. You lose, you double it again. You can't lose money as long as you can keep putting it in. We're never going to do that at this level unless something changes. We have big investment and we change our tactics. We're going to, if we go up, it will be like an unbelievable achievement whenever we do it. I think we probably will do it eventually, but it could be next year. It could be in 5 years.
Do you care? How much do you care about your equity? Like, would you happily dilute and have investors in just to establish and make the club established and sustainable? And
I've said this in the podcast before. I'm like actively interested in it. I wouldn't do it to get to a league. Yeah, because I'm happy where we are. Like,
but to get a stadium or something.
100%. Anything that I can't do or the current ownership can't do, that just clearly kicks us on. If it's the right people and they have the right ideas in mind, and they're not just people, if we come in, we can make you worth this much in a few years, and then we can all sell and make loads of money. Like, that's not why I'm in it.
Yeah.
So,
because I'm like that. I don't care about the. I've got it 100% at the moment. I don't care if I end up with 0%. I'd like to run it. I'd like some protections in there as long as we achieve certain things. I continue to run it, but it's not. You're not in it for the money.
No, that's the impression I got when I came to your ground as well. Like, he's in talking to you in the bar and stuff afterwards. Like, you can just see the passion. And that's what I like, and that's what weirdly a lot of non-league clubs don't actually have. That it's quite strange because it is a hobby for most people, and they're putting a lot of time and effort into it, and they're just miserable.
Yeah,
and you just think, why'd you do it?
Yeah,
like when we were talking in the bar, we'd just beaten you fairly comfortably, but you understand the context of everything. You're new on your journey. We were quite ahead of you in the women's league at the time in the pyramid, so it was an inevitable result. It wasn't like if you'd beaten us 8-0. I would have been miserable because it should never have happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, because the levels we were at, it's different.
Yeah.
So having that realism, having that understanding, and knowing that it's like, I think you mentioned it earlier when you say you're looking at a division at a time. Like, our job as chairman, whatever you want to call us, owners of clubs, is not to worry about individual results. It's to put good people in positions. If they are no longer good people, you have to make tough decisions. But you let them worry about that. And I'm looking, like you say, not just one season. I'm thinking sometimes I overdo this, I think, and I maybe worry too much, or I make too many projections as to what's going to happen in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' times, when you should just enjoy the journey a bit more, because that is why we do it, right? We could both be doing other stuff that would probably, we'll definitely make more money, and would like not be as frustrating at times. But we love running football clubs.
Have you had to fire any managers?
I've never done it. No, it's not. It's new. It will be a new experience if I ever do it.
Yeah, it's the worst.
You had to do it.
Just in taking over, you wanted to make some changes, and I mean, we've got 2 great managers at the moment, Georgie on the ladies and Sinks on the men's side. But you had to make those changes to deliver the vision of what we had, get the right people in, and it's rubbish.
And these were people that you inherited.
Yeah, and good people. Good people have done a good job, but we were looking for that step change, and honestly, it's rubbish. So you've had the same guy for 5 years.
So I only appointed one. That was Devs, because someone I knew before, hashtag, and like what an appointment it was ultimately. Like, he's got us all the way where he's got to, and he's
crushed it.
Yeah, and ultimately, people don't remember or know that he dropped out of. He was at National League South Side when he joined us. So like, it wasn't. This is a level he's very familiar with. And then Jason, we did inherit, but like Jason Stevens on the women's side was part of the people that had kept that club alive when the chairman had left. So it was a no-brainer, and he's done an unbelievable job as well. Not only has he got us up to the 3rd tier, we're challenging in the 3rd tier against teams way bigger than us. So I've never even had any sort of thought in my mind about changing anything. But inevitable, if I'm successful at running a club, it will be something I have to do at some point, because it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But I don't look forward to it. And with both managers, my preference would be that it would be if it ever happens, something that they choose to do rather than me. But it doesn't work like that. Yeah.
I noticed you've also got all your family involved, which is I always think is a good thing. I don't know if you know, my dad's the kit man.
Yeah,
for men's and ladies. He does both. My son's away in Africa at the moment, but he helps down at the bar. My daughter comes down. My sister does. My brother's a secretary. Well, it's people you can get to kind of do stuff for free as well.
Well, yeah. Ultimately, I mean, my dad. So the reason I have any links to non-league is through my dad as a physio. That's how I knew Devs, everyone from his time at physio. So obviously he came in as a physio, even when we were doing YouTube games. But then he's now co-chairman with me and a man called Derek Pearson, who formed the youth team before we merged with them. We've now, like, I found very quickly there was certain chairman's responsibilities I wasn't either very good at or I just didn't want to do.
Like what?
Well, the first one was really like a nature of the beast. So I'd be commentating the games, obviously, in the games. So I wouldn't spend much time in the committee room. And that was a bit of a faux pas. People felt I was unfriendly or I didn't want to meet them. It wasn't that. It was like, look, I've commentated these videos long before we're a non-league team. I enjoy it. I think the audience like me doing it. It's quite a unique thing that the owner of the club commentates. And it's what my background is. But I equally realised we're not doing a good enough job there. So I need to get people in that would be happy to do that sort of mingling and could do it. So my dad and Derek are perfect for that. Derek has worked with the FA for many years. And then also, like, my dad he's got a background in running many businesses. So he runs the match day experience now, as well as the medical side. Derek obviously looks after all the youth side, amongst other things. So we're all complementing each other in areas that the other one doesn't know anything about, really. So
isn't it mad the amount of things you have to do?
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I wouldn't be able to do this club if I didn't have people like Derek and my dad and others.
Well, no, I've got good people. Like my brother, he does everything on the strategy, the ground grading, infrastructure. Okay. Emma runs the club day to day. You would have met her.
Yeah.
Again, she's brilliant. Like Will does all the media. Like we're surrounded by really good people who work really. Because the other thing is when you have a club like this, a lot of people just you spend money, and it's like, look, yes, we do. We don't know if we've got the biggest budget, but you have got no idea how hard everyone works. Me and Will can be on the phone at 10 at night, or me and Emma at 6 in the morning. Everyone works so hard to make this happen. But the mad thing is, I don't think people realise how many little jobs are on a football club.
Yeah.
Every single day, everything on a match day, everything you have to get ready.
No, it's true, and that's what I
relentless.
think. On these friends of ours and stuff that we'll get into non-league soon, I think that's the biggest advice I give them is like, don't underestimate that part of it. Like, honestly, get your people in place pre non-league, so like that's where the merger was so good for us. Because people like Derek and Darren Crowley, who's our secretary, he's got so much work to do. Like that, we inherited them as well, and it's amazing. Like it's made our club so much stronger as a result. It wasn't even a deliberate thing we were going for. We just wanted a youth team, but we inherited these amazing committee members who are part of the whole club now. And without them, I don't know where we'd be, because I mean, Devs used to be our manager and secretary in step 6, and I think maybe even a bit in step 5. And there's no way you could do it now. There's so much stuff to do, so much red tape.
Yeah.
And it just gets more and more as you go through the leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're nearly at the end now. There's a few things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
You talked about Luton earlier. Do you think their success is a good thing or a bad thing for you? Like in terms of catchment area, has everyone got Luton crazy because they're in the Prem and maybe they're taking people away from what could be in your story?
I mean, I don't even think about it. I just think what brilliant thing they've done. I think it's just brilliant for football, and I really hope they stay up because they deserve it. They play so well, and I love the fact they've got this pokey little ground, and you know it's intimidating. People have to go. My first game of football was there. My dad took me there to watch Liverpool play.
There you go. You ended up supporting Liverpool instead of Luton.
Yeah, no, that was I think it's because my dad wasn't a Luton fan, but I think it's brilliant what they've done. It doesn't really take it away from us. I think if anything, it just kind of inspires you that a team can bat out this league. They've definitely not had the biggest budgets to get there, and they've crushed it. So
and obviously they were up like around Division 1 back in the day, but the journey they've been on since being a National League side is crazy.
Yeah.
No one's done that fast before.
Yeah.
Get from National League to the Prem is people like not only us, but people like what Wrexham and Salford and all these guys want to do need to look at how Luton have done it for sure, because they had a lot of issues they had to deal with as well with points deductions and all these kinds of things.
But no, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I love an underdog. I love Leicester winning the league. Yeah, the comeback for Wrexham's brilliant for that town. You want to have this rotation, so I think it's great.
Yeah, and ultimately, I do believe one day Rob and Ryan will exit Wrexham, and I think if they do, they'll leave it in such a better position. It will probably be like a Championship or Premier League club when they leave it. They'll probably make a ridiculous amount of money because they basically funded the whole thing from Disney money, which is mad.
Yeah.
And it's like, but everyone's a winner. Like that is just genius. I have no problem with it because they've taken a community asset and made it a million times better. They've given people in Wrexham something to do and support, and like a little bit like Bedford. It's not an area where there's loads going on and things, I don't think, in Wrexham, based on my understanding from the documentary at least. And they've given it this huge thing that everyone's talking about around the world.
Yeah, I think they'll be in the Premier League within a decade.
Yeah, I think they will as well.
Yeah.
I think they will, and I think they'll exit the club at that point.
Yeah.
They'll make loads of money. The club will be a completely different thing, but because it's such a good,
Yeah.
sleeping giant. Like I say, why there's only so many Welsh teams that are even in the English, pyramid, and they've got that north part of Wales. They're right on that part of England with all these big football clubs like Liverpool, Manchester, not a million miles away. And it just seems like perfect. But no one was thinking about it before they did it. No one was sitting around going, who's going to buy Wrexham? So, yeah, fair play to him. And then I think what you say about Bedford's really interesting because I have the same thought. So we've got a town near here called Basildon, which is where we play, basically. Bowes and Pitsea is in Basildon, or Pitsea next to it. And they've got 180,000 people. They've never had a good football team. Like, they've never had a football team anywhere near the league. Not even the National League.
Who do they support from around there? Where would they go to normally?
Southend. Yeah. It's not far away. So that's probably one of it. And, Basildon have got a couple teams. We were in the league with their best team last year. So step 4 team. They're doing all right this year, to be fair. But for the size of the town, I mean, compare that to other towns, similar population around here. It is Southend. It is Chelmsford City, National League South. They're going well in the National League South. Could easily be National League side next year. Southend have been a championship team, but probably a League 1, League 2 team if it levels out over the last couple of decades. Basildon not to have one, it's bonkers to me. And it's an interesting town, Basildon. There's like a documentary about it on Amazon Prime. It was basically a town that was created overnight as a commuter town for London, like in the 50s or 60s. And it's a lot of concrete. It was made. It kind of had to find itself, if you like.
Sounds like Milton Keynes.
Yeah, it's sort of maybe a slightly earlier version of Milton Keynes. And as a result, I don't know if that's why the football team hasn't prospered, but it has made me think when we're thinking about what area we settle in. Like Basildon, within Essex at least, is probably the most under catered to football community. Like, because everyone still loves football there. And a lot of people around here support West Ham and things like that. So you will go into West Ham. It's not hard to get into. A lot of Londoners came out into Essex and sort of migrated. But yeah, I do think there's a handful of towns and cities in the England where I don't understand why they haven't got. Like I find that we were talking last time with Paul Watson about he's a big Bristol City fan. I was like, why have Bristol never been in the Premier League? Like, it's such a big city.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bit mad, really. You've got Blackburn winning it and things like this. But, okay, before we finish,
Yes.
got a couple of closing questions for you. First thing, I know you're fairly new in the journey, but even in the couple of years you've been doing it, have you got any regrets?
Yeah, I get triggered by people on Twitter too much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's like some guy with like 3 followers talking crap about the club, and I'll sit there arguing with him all day. And I just, I regret doing that. I should just ignore it. I've got another
rite of passage with people like me and you, particularly in the social media space. Like, you have to go through that to realise not to do it.
Yeah, but actually, my bigger regret is not figuring out how to do this sooner.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I'd have figured it out back in 2017, but I can't have too many regrets. Look where we are. We own a football club. Everything's
exactly.
great.
This is the thing, isn't it? Like, within the social media world, specifically the YouTube world, those extra few years can make such a difference. Like, in YouTube subscribers, if you started YouTube in 2010 versus 2015, it could literally mean an extra zeros on the end of your subscriber count just because of the timing.
Yeah.
But that's an old phrase, isn't it? Like, the best time to start something is 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Well, the thing about regrets is it's doubting your decision making at the time. Like, you've got this benefit of hindsight. Honestly, I think every decision I make at the time is the best one. It might not always be, but I don't want to live with regrets. Yeah, everything I've got and everything we're doing, I'm happy with.
Yeah, that's good. And I think also, like, it does go fast, man. Like, when we came in, I remember thinking, should we have gone in at step 6, or should we have just bought a club, like, and changed some of the branding or whatever, and just started a national league? And like, when hashtag, when it was at its peak, when it was still on my YouTube channel, we would genuinely get like millions of views a game, and it was crazy. But like, we never would have got everywhere we got if we hadn't made the decisions at certain times. So it's easy to go back and go, oh, if we'd bought a National League side in 2016, we might be in League 2 right now. But equally, like, we also, if those things hadn't fallen in the right place at the right time, we could just not exist right now. Yeah. So I have no regrets in that front either. And final question would be, like, this is all about how to run a football club, right? This podcast. Okay. And we want to try and put together this little patchwork quilt of a club from all the different clubs we speak to. So I ask everyone, like, what do they think is the most important thing in making or sustaining a football club, and what is it for you?
There's so many, right? There's so many. If I had to pick one, I would say growing your crowds is the direct way towards sustainability. I know for me, fundamentally, the most important thing I can do right now is grow our crowds and match day revenue. And so I have to link another really important thing to that is brand. Yeah. Brand is so important. It might sound cringy or brand, but like, your brand is what people are buying into. You've got a brand that people are bought into. We've got, so buying that brand and getting people to come to a game is so important. And it's not as hard as you think. We've grown our crowds. And we go to other places, they're like, oh, you get much bigger crowds. How do you do it? I was like, because I phone people up and say, will you come and watch us? Or I ask the paper to write about us. Or I put stuff on. Like, we just, one person at a time, trying to increase our crowds, telling people when they come, thanks for coming, can you bring another person? You just have to, it's like even building a YouTube channel. You start one day, you got 1 viewer, and then 10, and then 100. You just got to keep working at it. But yeah, I think the most important thing to grow a football club is to grow your crowd. And
I think we're in the exact same position as you right now for that. Like, that is the top of our priorities. And it's amazing because both our teams exist and are doing interesting things because we have found crowds elsewhere.
Yeah.
We've found crowds, be it from podcast listeners or the Bitcoin space in general, be it from YouTube subscribers. But you still can't get away. It doesn't matter how good our clubs are and how, like, unique our models are. You cannot escape from the bread and butter football model, because if you're not doing it, it's just leaving money on the table. So yeah, I completely think that's such an important part. And I think with you guys, one thing that you have smashed is that identity piece.
Thank you.
You could easily have just come in at Bedford FC or whatever and not changed too much and just been another club. And that's one of the things I say when people say to me, why did you not put a place in your name? And I'm like, well, if we were called Brentwood Athletic and Brentwood being the town I'm from, would anyone care about us outside of Brentwood?
That's fair.
And we'd already created a brand for that. But what you've done, I think, is actually better, because you've combined locality and geography that you've inherited for a club you've taken over with a worldwide appeal. So that, I think, is brilliant, and you're smashing that. And yeah, if we can have this chat again in 5 years and we've got, double, triple attendances we're getting now, then it would just be a really interesting place.
All right, let me have one question for you, and I'll answer it as well. 5 years, that time 5 years, I literally stick at my calendar. Where will you be?
Well, if I go logic, I go like just, this is something I probably overdo in my brain, but logic mixed with a realistic optimism. I think there's a very realistic chance in 5 years we could be the National League South with hopefully like double crowds we're getting now at home, which will still be not anything amazing for our league, but double is double. It's a lot better than you're getting now. I think that's very achievable. It's not like pie in the sky. Like I could say 5 years we'll be in the League Two. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that could also happen if someone else comes in and gives me loads of money to spend, right? But if I'm being logical, and also, would I shake your hand on that right now? If you said to me, I can guarantee you, National League South football, women would be amazing to still be at third tier, to be honest, in 5 years, because the amount of money that's going to come into that game. And you double the crowd you've got now, and everything's, sustainable. I think I'd shake your hand on it.
Oh, I'd shake. I mean, if we could have step 2 in 5 years, I'd bite your hand off.
Yeah. Well, how many promotions would you need for that? What you're going to assume you get one this year?
Well, I don't want to assume. But just say we do. That means we're going to go to 4, so it's 2. Can we do 2 in 5 years?
That's doable.
I think it's doable.
Very doable. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard. Step 3 worries me. I've told you it worries me.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to turn that back on you. And you say whatever you want here. In 5 years, who will be higher? Hashtag all Real Bedford.
Of Real Bedford.
Oh, I love it. Let's go.
We should put a bet on that one.
Remember this date. Remember this
5
date.
years.
Listen, I'm really happy to have you on here,
Mate,
Pete.
thanks for having me.
I continue to be inspired by your journey. I know, you said some really nice things about us, not just here, but in other podcasts, which I appreciate. But it is mutual. Like, it doesn't matter who started and what years we come in. We're all part of this new wave, I think, and I like it. And I've even talked to the Dons guys about whether we can even formally recognise that with some sort of tournament or something. I think we should definitely do it. Anyone that's pushing the envelope in football, be it with Bitcoin or content or whatever it is, like the Walton and Hersham guys doing TikTok, we want to get them on here at some point. Like, it's got loads of different ways, but we're all kind of doing the same thing. And I personally welcome that. I think the more the merrier. I would love us to be in the same league. My dream one day is that we're like step 3, maybe step 2, and it's like you, the Dons, us, all in the same league, just reinventing the wheel, basically. I think it'd be amazing.
We'll fight each other. Well, listen, I appreciate everything you've done. Since I first reached out, you've been nothing but good and given us your time, and I love that fact you're doing this. I think this is needed and it's useful. So maybe FA Cup, maybe league.
Mate, let's make it happen
at some point.
If not, we'll have to do. Well, I'm sure we'll meet in a competitive fixture at some point. But if not, let's get some sort of tournament going. It'd be great.
Right, we're in. Cheers.
All right, all the best, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for joining us.